So everything is different these last 2 weeks, 2 months. 2 months, we were talking about that before. May 16th was our last, March 16th was our last Mass on Monday, March 16th. So my St. Patrick's Day present was we didn't have Mass anymore. That wasn't a very good St. Patrick's Day present. And of course, we still had Mass. You know that Father Prakash and I celebrated Mass together, as did the priests around the diocese continue to celebrate Mass, but just without people, or with the 1 or 2 people. Well, that's just where we're at. But then, yesterday was my 8th anniversary of ordination, so my ordination anniversary present was that we get to have Mass together again. Even if it's so limited. So I always get a kick out of this part of the Acts of the Apostles. Now you might be saying, Father, a kick out of it? Well, we hear about Philip. I always get those two confused. You know, the 7 men who are chosen for table service, right? And we see them as the first 7 deacons. And if I ask you to name them, you almost certainly, especially in this neighborhood, be able to say Stephen. And then a lot of people, most people can probably come up with Philip, right? Who we hear about today. And then the other 5, we never hear about them anymore. And so it makes it harder. Their names are only mentioned once in the Bible, so it makes it a little harder. Now, of course, we just read it the other day, so I do remember the 2 Nicks. There's 2 Nicks. How can you forget that? Nicholas and Nicanor, right? And then I'm not even going to try the other 3, okay? Because I know I wouldn't get all 3 of them, and I think I probably would even get one of them wrong. So, but I get a kick out of this because here are the apostles. They are no longer those stumbling, bumbling, misunderstanding guys that they were in the Gospels, right? It's Acts of the Apostles now, and now they seem like Jesus. Peter and Paul are not right away with Paul, but eventually they're healing people like Jesus did. They're speaking bravely and not caring if they get thrown in jail. Not only that, they give praise to the Lord that they were beaten for the word, right? So, but here they are, and their answer to you guys have been neglecting our widows is, well, it's not right for us to take time away from the word to deal with table service, right? So we'll pick out 7 guys to help with that. Now, they're at least half right there, right? Because we need help. They needed those 7 guys and more, right? We need help always along the way. We need that help. So they were absolutely right that they needed to pick out 7 more guys because it was too much for them. But I always imagine Jesus just kind of chuckling and shaking his head because they're supposed to do both. They're supposed to serve a table and preach the word. And so immediately the Holy Spirit took a hold of Philip and Stephen and sent them out, bravely preaching the word. And we would have guessed that the other 5 as well. That it's more than just what 12 can do, right? So they go out and they start preaching the word, and we hear that Philip goes to Samaria, and many people are brought to the word. But so then he needs help from his superior. The superior shows up. Peter and John, they come out and they lay hands on him so that they can receive the Holy Spirit. And it's a beautiful thing that we need help. That our bishop, we don't just live stream one Mass, right? And have the bishop and everybody receives communion once a year or whatever it is from the bishop. No, he has help. And there's certain things that we need his help for to do, right? Like confirmation. Well, this year we're going to get his delegation. I'm going to get his delegation to confirm because of what's been going on. He would come, but it wouldn't be until late October, and we just, we think it's best. But anyway, I digress. So, that we need help. That's the important thing that this shows us. And that's, I think, the point of that. And they realize it pretty quick, I think, those apostles. They probably are chuckling a few weeks later. They're chuckling to themselves and saying, well, I guess we better help at table too, because we need help with it all. And so that's a beautiful thing. Now, we have this beautiful reading from the gospel today. And it's that Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And that's how we show love to God. And of course, before Jesus, that was a pretty complicated thing, because there was the 10 commandments, but then there was also the 600 and however many more. And it was very difficult to keep up with all of those. But Jesus said, well, you know what? All of those are just to get you to love God above everything and to love your neighbor as yourself. So if we do that, that's actually a pretty darn good examination of conscience. Have I been loving God above all else? Do I love God better than baseball? Right? Do I love God better than the car or whatever it is that I'm fixing up? And so then the answer isn't that you have to give up that car or that you have to give up playing baseball. The answer is that it is really pretty simple. Do you feel God's pleasure in your ability? That's the true love for God. That, when I'm out hiking in God's creation or even just around town, I feel His pleasure in me taking care of myself. Back when I was good at playing basketball, I could feel His pleasure. I don't know if I was particularly mindful of it, but I could feel His pleasure in me using the God-given, the talent that He had given me. And so, if you're, when you boys are playing baseball, remember that that's not, that you don't want it to become more important than God, but to be something that you're always giving thanks that He gave you that ability. And that makes it a beautiful thing. That we allow, that we are mindful of it. We bring it back. That, you know what, and it doesn't make winning any worse. It doesn't diminish winning when we admit that God helped us. But boy, it sure makes the losing easier to deal with. When we realize that God gave those other guys the ability too. And that we each used our God-given ability to do our best, and somebody won and somebody lost. We realize that the Holy Spirit is with us. When Jesus was telling this to them, they were thinking, another advocate, man, that was confusing. Who's this other advocate? Which is, they're looking around at each other. Is it Peter? Of course, he's talking about the Holy Spirit here. That the Holy Spirit is with us. They knew Him. They didn't know that they knew Him, but they knew Him because they knew Jesus. Right? Nowadays, we know Jesus through the Holy Spirit in our lives. He stays with us. And so, God's love, whoever loves me will be loved by my Father. Seems to me like it's more like the other way around. The Father loves us, and then we love Him back. And we reflect that love to those people around us. But there's something here that if we have to accept Him. We have to accept that love into our lives. And when we accept it, then we truly know what it's like to be loved by the Father. And then we truly have the truth, the life, the love of Jesus revealed to us in our lives.